Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, my name is Bob Lemke. I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad to be here, despite the traffic. It was a bear. This is the longest it's ever taken me to get to the west side. God, oh man. It's always a pleasure for me to participate in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it's a little more meaningful when there's some new people, or some comparatively new people. Because whether you new people realize this or not, and I'm sure you don't, because we didn't, fact of life. You're all right. I don't care what they say about you. Fact of life. Next to us old-timers, you're the second most important people in the room tonight. And don't ever forget it, you know. Because really without newcomers, this thing would probably end up with old-timers, full of old-timers like me, standing up here telling these same old stories. You probably all get drunk, you know. Are there any people from Texas here? No Texans. That's amazing. The reason I ask that is, you know, when you speak in Texas, they have a thing down there. And if in the first 2 minutes you're talking, you don't tell your sobriety date, they automatically assume you don't have one. So just to get that Texan thing out of the way, my sobriety date is the 13th of January, 1964. Which means I've been sober longer than you've been alive. I know that doesn't impress anybody in this room, but it scares the hell out of me, I'll tell you. I just turned 68 years old, and that means half of my life I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous. Hell of a deal for a drunk like me. I also want to say that on the 12th of January, my wife and I celebrated. We were in Hawaii as guests of our kids, celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. Now, I tell you what, I know this gal like I know the back of my hand. And if she'd have known on the 12th of January, 1948, that she was going to go through 16 years of living hell, I know what she'd have told me. She does it once in a while yet. But really, we have quite a thing going today that beyond my wildest dreams. I'm one of these alcoholics, you know. I'm what this book says is a real alcoholic. I'm not an ANDA, I'm just a plain alcoholic, garden variety drunk. In fact, I'm a bar drinking drunk. Are there any bar drinkers here tonight? Thank God. You know, I was talking down in Newport Beach at the hospital, and there were 500 people in the room. I asked that same question, and 2 hands went up. I thought, my God, we're becoming an endangered species in alcoholics. I am one of those. I don't know about I don't know where the rest of you did your drinking, but I think if you didn't do any bar time, you missed a lot of fun. I loved everything about those joints, you know. I loved everything that goes on in there. I like the smell in there. I like them stools you can spin around on there. I like the mirrors that they have in them joints. I'll tell you some facts of life before I get out of here, but another fact of life. Jim and I could go out here tomorrow on La Tierra or Sepulveda, open up a joint without a mirror. Fact of life, we'd go broke in 1 week. 3 things you have to have in order to operate bars in this country. 1, you got to have the booze. 2nd, you got to have a license to sell it. And 3rd, you got to have a mirror. Or you will not make it in the bar business. That mirror in a bar is not there, you know, that it's more than a fixture. It is not there for social drinkers. Bars, incidentally, cannot survive on social drinkers. They depend on people who drink in volume. And you and I are the volume drinkers of the world. The social drinkers do weird stuff in bars. I mean, you bar drinkers know what I'm talking about. They come in there, they have a couple drinky poos, and then they start saying weird off the wall kind of crap like, ooh, I'm getting dizzy, I'm going home. Going home? People like you and I, we sit there all day. And we have to have something to entertain ourselves, and it's usually our own image, thus the mirror. Yeah. We sit there all day staring in the mirror, figuring things out, you know. I like them jukeboxes they have in them joints. You know, the ones that play Born to Lose all day. I even got to like the men's can in them joints. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, we used to have a guy around here by the name of Norm Alpe, who in my opinion was the greatest speaker Alcoholics Anonymous ever had, ever will have. And he was a barroom drinker. And the first time I heard Alpe, he was up at one of these podiums and he talked a mile a minute. You had to listen close to catch it, you know. He was shooting out there, you know, like a machine gun. And he's going ranting around, you know, and all of a sudden, he said something that really caught my attention. He said he got to be a bathroom slider in the men's can. And right away, one of the bananas fell out of my ears. I thought, you know, what's this clown talking about? You know, I thought I'd done it all by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and so do you. And I thought, you know, what is this clown talking about? He went on to explain that bathroom sliders in the men's can, I think in the ladies too, where they have those pay toilets, good smart alcoholics slide under the door to avoid paying and save that money for drinking whiskey. And right away I thought, by God, why didn't I think of that? Bet you there's a couple here thinking that right now. And then he went on to explain that whenever he got done doing what he was doing in there, he'd slide back out. Never realizing, of course, that once you're in there, you can turn the handle and walk out, you know. And anybody that thinks like that is a friend of mine, I'll tell you. And so I'm eternally grateful to the Norm Alpes and the Eddie Regans and the Chuck Chamberlains and the Jimmy Ryans who said things from podiums like this to drunks like me, or I would not be here. I'll tell you, fact of life, I would not be here. They made sense to me. They talked what Chuck used to refer to as the language of the heart. And I identified. I said, if those guys are drunks, you know, like, then I got to be one, because I was a lot worse than they were. And so that's the way it was. And I don't know, I hear people say that they're born alcoholic and they became alcoholic, and I don't know. I don't care. I don't care anymore. Whether I was born alcoholic or became alcoholic, I don't know. But I know the day I was born, I had 2 strikes against me right out of the chute, you know. First of all, I was born in this little town in Wisconsin. And you know how little towns are. Everybody knows everybody's business. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad. And in my case, it always turned out bad. And the second strike I had against me the day I came out of the chute, my dad was assistant chief of police in that damn town. And he was about 6'4", weighed 280 pounds, wore a uniform, carried a gun, scared the living bejesus out of you. And for the first 15 years of my life, out of sheer fear, I did everything that turkey told me to do. You know, I just knew deep down inside if he ever hit me, he'd kill me. I mean, he was a big moose and a tough cop, and I was scared to death of him. You know, if he told me to run to the store, I literally ran to the store. I didn't slow down when I got out of sight or something, you know, and I run all the way back, too. If he told me to carry out the trash, I carried out everything that even looked like trash, you know. If he told me to rake the leaves, I even raked the neighbor's leaves. And in Wisconsin, we have a lot of snow. And he taught me very early in life, if 5 flakes of snow fell on our sidewalk, it was my job to take it off of there. And I did it religiously until this thing that happens to all human beings, everybody here tonight, everybody out there, about the age of 15, something happens to human beings that medical science can't even explain. But it's a traumatic thing. You know I can only relate my particular situation, but up until that day, I don't say it's on your 15th birthday, but somewhere around there, something happens to human beings. And I can relate it like it was yesterday. I woke up that morning, I think maybe something happened in the night. Maybe something came floating in my bedroom on a cloud or something, and it went kaboom. And all of a sudden, I was transformed from an obedient slob to a genius overnight. If you don't believe that, go out here tonight, find a 15-year-old. Ask him a question on any subject in the world, he'll tell you. The smartest thing walking the face of the earth right this minute, in their humble opinion, is a 15-year-old. And you were no different and I was no different. And I can remember that day, I got up that morning, no bells, whistles, anything, nothing went off. I just got up and washed up and cleaned up and got ready to go. I had breakfast and went off to school. And then I came home at noon for lunch. And wouldn't you know, it was snowing. Had started to snow about 10 o'clock. And I know my job, right? But kaboom, it happened. I said, screw it, I just won't do it no more. I mean, my logic and reasoning at that time, and probably yours, is what will the neighbors say? A genius out there shoveling snow. All of a sudden it was beneath my station in life, I just won't do it no more. And I took that snow shovel and set it up against the house and walked in and sat down at the kitchen table, started to eat my lunch. And then the squad car pulled up in front. And I heard the car door slam. Then I heard the shovel going out there on the sidewalk, and I said to myself, it's about time he does something around here. Did you ever have the feeling like you got to do it all? That's the way I felt. And he came in the house all out of breath because he wasn't used to that manual labor. And he took off that uniform cap and that heavy Mackinac they wear in the winter and that Sam Brown belt and that 45, laid it on the dining room table like he did every day. Came in the kitchen and sat down at the kitchen table right across from me. And then he threw me a curve. He didn't say a word. And if you've just been endowed with the smarts, that alone will drive you nuts. I'm just waiting for this turkey to say something. I've been saving it up for 15 years. And I'm going to lay it on him. And he didn't say a word. And I finished my lunch ahead of him, and I had to go back to school. I can remember this like it was yesterday. I got up and walked around that kitchen table. I had to go past him, out through the dining room, through the living room, out the front door. I can't explain it. You understand it. I could not let a situation like this go by without saying something. And when I got just even with him, I looked him right in the eye, reached down inside and got one of them pearls of wisdom I'd just been endowed with, right? Looked him right in the eye and said the smartest thing I could think of. I said, is the snow heavy today? Big mistake. He didn't say a word. He just kind of turned in the chair and came all the way from right field with a flat of the hand. Direct hit. And I took off in the air up against the dining room windows. And when I came to, I developed another bad attitude. I said to myself, and only to myself, nobody can hit me like that and get away with it. I'll get even with him, by God, if it kills me. And in the quiet of my room at night, I used to plan his demise. Now, I understand today that is not proper thinking for a 15-year-old to be planning his father's demise. Well, that's the way it really was, man. 1 year after that incident, another traumatic thing happened in my life. I don't say that this has anything to do with my alcoholism, but I'll never forget it. Another winter day, snow piled up this high all over. Me and 2 friends of mine came home from school in the afternoon, about 4 in the afternoon. Got to the corner that I have to turn down the street and go to my house. And there, passed out in a snowbank, in full uniform, is my dad, drunker than a skunk. And these two guys started to tease me about my drunken dad, that drunken cop. And we went to Fist City, and I won. But I'll never forget as long as I live. I knew that moment, deep down inside, that he had defamed that badge he wore, and he had disgraced that uniform he wore, and he had lost the faith and trust of that community that he had pledged his life to protect and serve. And it was a traumatic thing. I thought, how could anybody do anything like that? 6 months after that incident, at the age of 47, he died of chronic alcoholism. Didn't say that on his death certificate. He's a big shot in that town. It said heart disease. But those of us who lived with him knew the booze had gotten him. About 6 more months after that incident, this thing happened. This gal and I had been going together, you know. When we were going together, I want to explain that. We started out in kindergarten together, the same kindergarten, same Sunday school, same grade school, same high school. And right out of high school, we got married. It was a beautiful event, crossed white shotguns, everything. She still doesn't like me to say that. But I used to slough it off and say it happens in the best regulated families, you know? And like I say, that's a little over 50 years ago now, and she's still there. And I'm eternally grateful that she stuck around for the life that we have today. But at that time, you know, right after we were married, I went down to the police station and told my dad's buddy, the chief of police, you know, I'm going to be a father and a husband and all that stuff. And I got a lot of responsibility now. And she even wants things like furniture to sit on and curtains on the window and all that crap. And I said, I don't have any money. He said, go up to the sheriff's department tomorrow morning. I think they need help. And you know how it is in a small town? One phone call. It's all it takes. One phone call. I walked into the sheriff's department the next morning, they pinned a gold badge on me. And I got to be a drunk cop, just like my dad. And time doesn't permit me to tell you what can happen to a drunk cop, except stir up some old resentments, and God knows you probably don't need any more, especially when it comes to cops. Bunch of cop haters over there. Spot them a mile away. But I'll tell you another fact of life. If I had my choice this very minute to be anything in this world, I could be this very minute, still be a cop. I loved every minute of it. I loved all the excitement, the camaraderie, and everything that goes being a cop. And I don't know what was going on in your life prior to your entering Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'll tell you another fact of life. Do you know that 99 out of 100 human beings, that isn't only us neither, that's all those people out there too. 99 out of 100 human beings have one thing in their life that's the single most important thing in their life. And in 99 out of 100 cases, that one single thing is another human being. Isn't it incredible? It's another human being. It's a wife, a husband, a lover, a child, a parent, a grandparent, aunts, uncles, somebody is the single most important thing in 99 out of 100 people's lives, except cops. And if there's any cops here tonight, don't ask me, ask them. They all have one thing in their life that's the single most important thing in their life. It's above all human things, it's a damn badge. And everyone that's carried one will tell you the same thing I'm about to tell you. I'd have done anything short of murder to keep that damn badge, except stay away from one drink of whiskey. And this woman that has put up with my crap now a long time, she was pre-Al-Anon then. She's black belt Al-Anon now. If you don't know what a pre-Al-Anon is anyone who really loves a practicing alcoholic and has never been to Al-Anon. They're pre-Al-Anons. I mean, she didn't know anything about alcoholism, Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Alateen, Alatot, none of that crap. All she knew is she loved a drunk cop and it was driving her nuts. And I'm a phony, a cheat, a liar, and a con. If you don't know what a con is, you're looking at one. But I did spot a couple in this room tonight. Glad you're all here. But I got to be a real con artist. I could con you out of your socks and you wouldn't even know it. And I think I could do it again with a couple weeks practice. And I had her that close, I mean that close, to being thoroughly convinced that my drinking was all her fault. And if she'd just get off of my back, everything would be all right. And I don't want any newcomers to think I got a bunch of warrants in my pocket and you start heading for one of these doors, you know. They took that badge away from me a long time ago. And it was probably one of the worst days of my life that I can remember. My career in law enforcement came to an abrupt halt one night. Nothing I planned, because like I tell you, if I had my choice right this minute, I'd be out there riding a black and white. But it all came down one night. A bunch of cops and our wives going to have a party. And I don't think there's anything different, incidentally, between a cops party and a civilian party, except maybe at the cops party the booze is all free. And that's where drunks like me really shine. I don't know about any of you, but I personally just love free booze parties. And I'm not the guy sitting at a free booze party, sitting over there in the corner sipping on drinks with a little pinky sticking out. I'm back there in the kitchen where the supply is, with both hands, getting all I can get while the getting's good, in case they run out, you know. And I don't know how long we were at that party, but all of a sudden she sidled up next to me in the kitchen and says, "We're leaving." I said, "What are you talking about, woman? We just got here." At least it seemed like that to me. I don't know about any of you, but every party I've ever been at where there's free booze especially, it seems like there's a magic takes place in those rooms. And I'm a part of the magic, and I'm not leaving. And she looked at me with them cold Al-Anon eyes and said, "We're leaving." And I don't know to this day how she got the keys, because I'm like you. It's my car, I drive. And she had the keys, and we left. And all the way home, she started bad-mouthing me again about my drinking, you know. And the book talks about this. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous, newcomer, talks about this. It's in the book. It says, you and I, who are real alcoholics, go through life with blinders on us like they put on horses, it says. And we don't see anything this way, and we don't see anything this way. It's our way or no way. We're very selfish individuals. And we have this ability too. We have usually, most of us have a little switch here, and we can turn off all that chatter. And, you know, yak, 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 and it goes right over the head. Don't even hit the eardrum. And I can't explain this because it had to be something other than me. Something happened that night on the way home. I think the blinders fell off and the bananas fell out of my ears. And I started hearing some of this heavy-duty crap she's laying on me. She's starting to say funny things to me, like how my drinking is affecting our entire life, she said. I said, now what are you talking about?
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
She says, first of all, it's affecting our social life. I said, yeah, how's that? She says, because of your dirty, filthy mouth. I bet you there isn't a person in this room believes that, huh? And she's not only that, she says it's affecting every other aspect of our life. I said, now what are you talking about? She says it's affecting our home life, our family life, our kids' lives, our financial life, our sex life, everything about us is being affected by my drinking. Now I'm certain she flipped her lid or something. And we got in the house and she wouldn't shut up. And I reached for the only thing I know would shut her up, a 38. I said, woman, I've heard all I'm ever going to hear from you about my drinking. I'm going to blow your damn brains out. And she took off like a deer. Out the front door of that house, 6 blocks down the street to the only place she knew she could get help, right? The sheriff's office that I work at. And I'd have got her too if she'd just slowed down, you know. And you'd have a different speaker here tonight, you know. I'd be up there walking the yard tonight and talking the talk and walking the walk. And so I don't know about any of you, but I'm eternally grateful right this second that I didn't pull that trigger that night. That I didn't pull that trigger that night. Or we would never have been in Hawaii last week, I'll tell you that. And I came out of that blackout standing in the middle of the sheriff's department at 3 o'clock in the morning with a 38 in my hand, wondering how the hell I got there. And then my great intellect and better judgment took over, which incidentally got each and every one of you to Alcoholics Anonymous, whether you believe it or not. There might be one or two exceptions to that, and that would be somebody that got here as a result of their last great idea. But most of us garden variety drunks got here as a result of our great intellect and better judgment. And I came out of that blackout standing in the middle of the sheriff's office wondering, how the hell did I get there? And then I realized what was going on. I came out of that blackout, and there's these guys coming off the late shift, standing, making out reports and looking at me kind of funny. You know how your family looks at you when you're 3 sheets to the wind? They kind of look down their nose at you like you're some kind of second-class citizen, and they got a quizzical look about them, you know? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't belong here. Really. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you don't belong here. And they don't have to say a word. You know what's going on in their head. They're saying things to themselves like, there he or she is again. Drunk again. Just promised 3 months ago, never again will you see me take a drink of whiskey. 4 months before that, when my boss, the sheriff of that county, had me on the carpet for the umpteenth time, swore on a stack of Bibles, never again, George, will you see me take a drink of whiskey. And here I am, drunker than a skunk. And I knew tonight's the night, man. I gotta play my ace in the hole. I don't believe, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't believe you can survive in Alcoholics Anonymous without knowing some of this terminology. An ace in the hole is something that you and you alone know about you, that not another human being knows, and that you know somewhere, someplace, sometime, you're going to have to lay it on somebody just to get out of a real jackpot. And I knew that night, tonight's the night, man, I got to play my ace in the hole. And I don't know what your ace in the hole was, but my ace in the hole was quite simple. I grabbed a piece of paper from the sergeant and started to scribble my resignation. Now that's insanity that it talks about in that book. Because with a stroke of a pen, I'm going to give away the single most important thing in my life, that damn badge. Because by then that badge is above that woman, those kids, that house. That badge was life itself. The book talks about that. The book talks about lack of power was our dilemma. And I had trouble when I first got here about that. Because when I had that badge, I had the power. All I had to do was show it to you and make you do any damn thing I want you to. And that's power, man. That's power. That's real power. And I knew all the time I was writing, they deep down inside, my ace in the hole was all the time I was writing. I knew deep down inside, like you knew deep down inside whenever you played your ace in the hole. All the time I was writing, I knew deep down inside they could not afford to lose the best man in that department, in my humble opinion. And you know what happened? They accepted it. They had had all of Bob Lemke they could stand that night. They had covered my butt for 8.5 years, and they had had it that night. And the sheriff of that county, who was, after my dad died, he was my idol. And he took my badge. Tough deal. Tough deal. And at the age of 31, I did the most adult, mature thing I could think of. I ran away from home. If there's any runners here tonight, I want to talk to you after the meeting. Because you know, wherever I go in this country or any other country, these rooms are full of runners. Running to something, running from something. And every runner who's ever come to Alcoholics Anonymous, including me, we all forgot one thing, and we all forgot the same identical thing. And that is, no matter where you're running to or running from, you forgot it, I forgot it. I had to bring me along, and you had to bring you along. And you is the problem, and me is the problem. And you can't make this thing alone, and I can't make this thing alone. But together we can make it. Together we can make it. And that, newcomers, that's the miracle here. One drunk talking to another, and it works. It works to the tune of over 2 million sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's good enough for me, man. That's good enough for me. And I consider myself a very fortunate member of this fellowship, because over the years I've had the privilege, and I mean a privilege, to eyeball 50% of them, eyeball to eyeball. And I believe that's an earned privilege. It is not given. You earned the right to do this and suit up and show up and fight the traffic all the way to Westchester. But I'll tell you another fact of life. No matter where I go in this place, in this outfit, I always consider it a privilege once I get seated to sit amongst you and be counted amongst you. No better than, no less than, just dead even. No better than, no less than, just dead even. And that's what this whole thing is all about anyhow. And that's why this commonality that you and I share is the main ingredient here. Drunks never wanting to be drunks and ending up in all kinds of strange circumstances, situations, and our stories go on and on and on. You know, if Normsies were to sit in these meetings and hear these stories, they'd say it's all a bunch of fantasy, you know. But it isn't. We did it. We lived through it when we made it. And so we're the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones sitting in these meetings today. We're the lucky ones because they're still out there dying like flies on that street of broken dreams and broken promises out there. And I got to tell you about my last drunk, and then we'll go home. Because I've been here long enough to say this with authority. If you can't remember your last drunk, you probably haven't had it yet. But I don't know about any of you, but I never want to forget what was going on in my life early morning on the 13th of January, 1964. My last drunk was no big deal, you know. I didn't sit around and plan that sucker for 3 weeks or something. It was a Friday night like tonight, the 27th of December, 1963. Just finished eating dinner. Made the big announcement to that woman and those kids. Told them I'm going out and have a couple beers with the guys. I'll be back in 2 hours. And she started that damn rhetoric, that yak, yak, yak. And we get fed up with that crap too, you know. And I said, listen, woman, I want to tell you something for the last time. I just put in 40 for a bunch of ingrates around here. And I'm going out there and commiserate with my friends, and I'll be back in 2 hours. Now knock it off. And that was the 27th of December, 1963 at about 7:30. And like I say, I got back on the 13th of January, 1964. Can't tell you to this day where the hell I was. I know on the 27th of December, 1963 at about 7:30, I went to my favorite watering hole, a place called the Prelude on Lancashire Boulevard in North Hollywood, which really ain't a hell of a lot to shoot for. It was one of them padded sewers that I had started to frequent. You know the kind I'm talking about? I mean, they don't even have a front door there, just curtains hanging there, you know. But I really went there, really bottom line, I believe I went there to meet these lifelong drinking buddies of mine who I just met 2 weeks ago. Sure enough, there they all were. And we started doing the things that real drunks do in bars. You know they're doing it right now, right this minute, 10 minutes to 9 on a Friday night. It's going on in bars all over this world. The same identical thing, not one thing has changed. They're all standing around there talking in millions and spending in dimes, trying to impress people we don't know with money we don't have. If you're a smart drunk like me, you're trying to put the make on some dolly down there at the end of the bar and impress the hell out of her. And you know, in this group of 6 guys I went there to meet, fact of life, there wasn't one common laborer in the whole bunch, you know? We were all brain surgeons and jet pilots and astronauts and doctors and lawyers and devout liars. But in this group of 6 guys, there's a new guy. His name was Pete. And Pete was one of those intellectual giants you meet in bars. You bar drinkers know what I'm talking about. That's that guy or gal who sits down there at the end of the bar and has the answer to every living subject in the world. And they drive people like you and I nuts. And that was Pete, you know. I mean, if you had marital problems, and I had marital problems, he had the answers. If you had legal problems, he had the answers. If you had medical problems, he had the answers. If you had engineering problems, he had the answers. I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know? I thought, how can one guy know so much about so many things? And he continued that drunk with us, and thank God he did, because as it turned out, Pete was really quite a guy. He was the one guy in the group who it seemed was always well enough to make the run for the rest of us who were too sick to make the run. Pete could find a jug on election day in a dry state. You know, one of them great guys. And besides that, he had A negative blood. And I stuck pretty close to him. I see I lost half the room again. They don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah. You know how I know that? No matter where I go in this country or any other country, halfway out the door, 3 people are going to tap me on the shoulder and they all ask you the same question the world over. They all say, hey man, I want to ask you something. And I know what they're going to ask me. They all say, what do you mean by that A negative blood crap? And just so we don't plug up the parkway out here tonight, fact of life, if you have A negative blood, first of all, it's rare blood. And second of all, when you're selling it to buy wine, you get more for A negative than any other kind of blood. And so I stuck close to Pete, you know. I mean, I might have been born at night, but not last night, you know. And then I can't tell you the series of events that happened, because I'm what this book says, the real alcohol. I was passing in and passing out all the time. And we were living in these abandoned cars, one of which was mine. You laugh. You know how your car gets to be an abandoned car? The tires are usually flat, the battery's dead, it's out of gas, and it's usually 6 months behind in payments. Then legally it becomes an abandoned car. It also got to be our living room, our kitchen, our bedroom, and our bathroom. Got a little salty in there. And one of those mornings, I don't know which one, you know, drunks don't wake up, drunks come too. And we all came to except Pete. And Pete had swallowed his tongue that night in a convulsion, and he was dead in a doornail. And I got fighting mad at everything and everybody, and God if there is a God. And my great intellect and better judgment took over again. Remember, that's what got you here and me here? My great intellect and better judgment said, you know, if there's a God, why would he let a good guy like Pete go, who knows everything there is to know about everything, and let me stay? And then I can't tell you the series of events that happened after Pete was gone. But this is what I never want to forget as long as I live. Early morning on the 13th of January, 1964, some phenomena started taking place. I don't even know what the hell a phenomena is, but some weird stuff started happening. Because all of a sudden out of that radio came the most beautiful music I ever heard in my life. Now I know that had to be, today I know it was hallucinations, but because the battery was dead, you know? But it's as real as I'm standing here, really. It was like the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra was in the car with us. I never heard music like that before in my life or since. And I thought to myself, this is how it must be when you die. And you know what? Everybody sitting here tonight, everybody out there, they all have a little tape in the back of their heads, and your head and my head, that you dreamt up and that I dreamt up about your concept of what you think it's going to be like the day you check out. And mine had something to do with music being played, and by God, here was the music. And then I got real scared. Have you ever been real scared? I mean, really, really scared? I thought cops aren't supposed to get scared. But I got real scared, and for the first time in my adult life, I got down on my knees in that sewer, cried out to a God I was absolutely certain did not exist, and if he did exist, he don't want anything to do with a drunk like me. But I said the most honest, sincere prayer I've ever uttered in my life. I said, God, if there be a God, the only prayer I know is help me. And through a series of unexplained happenings, I got to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that night on the 13th of January, 1964. Hasn't been necessary since to go out there and be a phony, a cheat, a liar, and a common drunk. And if I get nothing else out of this deal, that mere fact ought to last me a lifetime. And I don't know why you're here. But I know why I'm here. I came here, bottom line, to find a new way to live, because bottom line, my way just simply was not working. And that's why I came here. And at that time in the state of California, there wasn't one hospital in this entire state would admit anybody for chronic alcoholism, not one. And so we've come a long ways. And I got directed to one of them AA clubhouses, and I'm not here to promote AA clubhouses neither, because some of them are dens of iniquity. But the one I went to was not, is not, will not be, as long as I got anything to do with it. And I walked in that clubhouse that morning, there were no meetings going on, just 2 old goats sitting over there in the corner playing cribbage. And I walked in the door and they stopped playing cribbage. And one of them poked the other one and pointed at me, and he says, we better do something with that one, or he's going to start jackknifing around the room here, you know. I mean, I wasn't nervous, just quick, you know. And they applied the only therapy they knew at that time. Do you understand that? The only therapy they knew. They gave me a bucket of paint and a paintbrush, figuring that I could paint faster than anybody else in the place. And I painted that damn clubhouse, and I can't tell you to this day how long I painted. I don't know if it was 5 days, 50 days, don't know. But I'll never forget the day I finished. It was a bright Saturday morning. Put away the buckets and the brushes and cleaned everything up just perfect, because we're perfectionists too, you know. And then I found out the truth, that one of them cribbage players had been a painter all his life. And that old thinking came back that fast. Why me, God? Why wasn't he up there painting? And I'll fix their clocks. I'll get drunk at every damn one of these phonies. And I headed out the back door of that clubhouse, bound and determined to quit Alcoholics Anonymous, get drunk at every damn one of you. And God, as I understand, God had to perform another miracle. And you know what? He moved a guy from Riverside, California to Glendale, California that second. Because I reached for that push bar on the back door of that clubhouse, like those push bars. And before I hit the push bar, the door opened up ahead of me. And there's this clown standing on a little landing out there. He's got a smile from ear to ear. He says, "Hi!" And I said, "Shove it." He says, "Why do you say that to me? I don't even know you." I said, "Shove it anyhow." He said, "Come here, I want to talk to you." He took me back in the meeting hall, set me down in them Henroid chairs, you know, not wooden ones, them cold metal ones. And I told him about them gray-haired goats, and they made me paint that club. And I'm going to get drunk at every damn one of them. And today he's my sponsor. Unfortunately, 3 months ago, I put him away. 90 years old and 40 years sober. Only sponsor I've ever had. Just one hell of a guy. He saved my life. And he said, if I'm going to be your sponsor, 3 things are going to happen to you, man. 1, you're going to go to meetings. 2, you're going to study our book. And 3, for the first time in your adult life, you're going to follow instructions. I thought, how the hell does he know that? And they say at that time there were 700 meetings a week in the greater Los Angeles area, and today there's 2,400 a week. And we made them all. I mean, it was meetings every night. And newcomers, it's going to happen to you because it's happened to every one of us, so don't feel bad about it. You're going to say to your wife, your husband, your buddy, your girlfriend, meetings every night. Tonight I'm not going. And that night he came by early. Put me in the car and started down the freeway. I said, where are we going tonight? He says, we're going to the hole in the ground. I thought, oh my God, now they're going to bury me. And for those of you who don't know where the hole in the ground is, it's underneath the Ebell Club in Huntington Park, California. Was started by a guy by the name of Tex Adams, who'd been sober since Lincoln had the measles. Thank God for people like Tex who started places like that for me, drunks like me. And he told me that I had to study that book. He would not let up. I mean, he was tenacious. He'd get me in the corner and say, between page 1 and 164 of this book is how drunks like him and millions of others before him had found a way of not to die from chronic alcoholism. And then he said, if you don't want to do it, then get the hell away from me. I thought, how can he talk to a sick alcoholic like that? I mean, don't he understand we're sensitive? He literally saved my life. He motivated me to do the one thing I would never have done on my own volition. I cracked the cover of the book, and I found me in there. And we got to the Huntington Park that night and started down the steps into the Ebell Club. And this great surge of honesty started running through my veins. I can't believe it. Because up until that second, you know, I'm a phony, a cheat, a liar. I tell the truth about nothing. And I can't explain why all of a sudden I get this gut feeling that I got to tell this guy for once in my life some truth. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, Joel, I got to ask you something. He turned around real gruff and he said, yeah, what do you want now? And I knew he'd had me up to here. You know, he was sick and tired of my BS, and I knew it. And I asked him that world-famous question that all newcomers are compelled to ask their sponsor. How long do I have to go to these damn meetings? And this wise old man with the x-ray vision got fighting mad that fast. Took his index finger and shoved me into the corner outside the meeting hall so they wouldn't hear it inside. When he got me in the corner where I couldn't get away, he started to get violent. Yeah, he started to hit me in the chest like this, and he started to scream. And he said the most profound thing he's ever said to me in 34 years. He said, you idiot. I didn't like that. He said, you have to go to meetings until you want to go to meetings. Then you don't have to go to meetings anymore. Didn't make much sense then, but it sure does now. But I see I'm running over. I just got a minute, if you can bear with me, you know. I mean, newcomers get damn excited around 9 o'clock, you know. They're the same ones that used to sit in the bar and say, "What do you mean it's closing time?" So hang in there, Joe, just a minute here. I got a point I got to strut here. And they sit you in the front row, you know, here, so you can't fall asleep, you know. Them old-timers are smart, you know. But halfway back, I spot this clown. He's scribbling on a piece of paper, and I thought, I didn't know you had to take notes here. And just before the meeting's over, I saw that guy. He split out the side door, took that piece of paper he was writing on, stuck it on a bulletin board right near the door. And I'm an ex-cop, and I'm nosy by nature. And I got to find out what's on that bulletin board. And I run over there, sneak over there, and grab that piece of paper off that bulletin board. And don't tell me there's no miracles here, because you know what was on there? It was a little poem about drunks. And I read it, and it made sense. And when nobody was looking, I stole it. Took it along home, and on the days when I was absolutely certain that I just can't make this thing, you know, I'm sure Joe is saying that right now, you know, I just can't make it. And yet I didn't want to go back out there in them damn cold cars and start drinking rot-gut wine again and die like my buddy Pete. So I get it out of my bill for read it, saved my can a million times, and it's time to go, and I want to thank Nancy for asking me to be here. It's a little poem entitled, "Which Place?" I dreamed one night I passed away and left this world behind. Started down that lonesome trail, some of my friends to find. Came to a signboard on the trail, directions it did tell, keep right to go to heaven, turn left to go to hell. I hadn't been too good on earth, just a hopeless, boozing rake, and knew there at the crossroads the path I'd have to take. So I started on the rocky path that leads to Satan's place, and shook within not knowing just what I'd have to face. Old Satan met me at the gate. "What's your name, my friend?" I said, "I'm just old sober Sam that's come to a sad end." He glanced through some files. "You made a mistake, I fear. You're listed as an alcoholic. We don't want you here." I said, "I'm looking for my friends." And a smile stole over his face. "If your friends are alcoholic, they're in the other place." So I went back the other way till the crossroads I did see, and turned right to heaven, as happy as could be. St. Peter smiled and said, "Come in. For you, I have a berth. You're an alcoholic. You've been through hell on earth." I saw old Dubbin. Yep, and old Pete too. Bill C. and a friend called Bell. And brother, I was tickled, because I thought they'd gone to hell. So brothers, all take warning. Learn something from my trip. You got a place in heaven if you try hard not to slip. If someone tempts you with a drink when you're not feeling well, just tell him you're going to heaven and he can go to hell. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.